Welcome to our first show of Talking Shop. I'm Clint Newell, and we started doing this little series here just to take a moment to spend some time talking with a few of our people here at the dealership, and hopefully we'll have some episodes where we talk with various business people around the community. And our goal is to give you some insight into our business and the things that are going on, and how to interact with us and how we interact with our customers, and how to save some money and do business with us. And then hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about business in general in the area and get a feel for what's going on in our community. So today I'm sitting here with Jerry Stone. Jerry's our sales manager for our Toyota brand, and he's been here at the dealership for a long time. How many years has it been, Jerry?
16 years.
16 years. I knew it was over 15, so I would have been safe there. But anyhow, Jerry does a great job leading our Toyota business, and I thought, I'd spend just a little time today talking about that intimidating car shopping process. And you hear a lot about that. People talk a lot about it. And a lot of people feel intimidated when they buy a new car, don't enjoy shopping for a new car, would just as soon put off buying a new car, and all that. So, I thought we'd spend a little time talking about that. And first of all, to you, Jerry, why do you think people are so intimidated sometimes when they go to shop for a car?
Well, I think part of it is just perception. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people might not have bought a car in a long time.
Yeah.
And so the perception of the business may be what they knew 10, 15 years ago. And I think that has changed quite a bit since it actually.
Yeah, from my perspective, I see the industry having changed quite a bit in that regard. I think the car shopping and car buying process actually is a lot less intimidating today than it was 10 or 20 years ago, certainly compared to 30 or 40 years ago. But, obviously, with newer, younger buyers, a lot of people don't remember some of the more traditional perspectives. But I see, the industry's really become a lot more transparent. There's just a lot more information available today.
100%. I think a lot of people now are doing a little bit more shopping online even before they come into the dealership. But, one of the things that you mentioned just a minute ago, you asked me how long I've been here.
Right.
And I've been here 16 years. And I think one of the best things about our dealership and our salespeople that can make it the process easier for people is we don't go through salespeople like your traditional dealerships do.
Right.
We have a longevity of salespeople here,
mm-hmm.
and we have a process that I believe that really makes it a whole lot easier, so people don't really have to be so nervous to come in and buy a car from us.
Yeah. But, if it's their first time here, they don't know that.
Correct.
So, what do you say to somebody that's never shopped here before that maybe had a bad experience on their last purchase at another dealership? What would your comment be to somebody like that?
One of the things that we do, because that does come up, but mm-hmm. what we do is we just take more time with those folks.
Mm-hmm.
We explain what our dealership's all about. We take the time to hear their questions. It's not just about selling them a car. It's trying to find out what their needs are,
mm-hmm.
to be able to point them into the right direction. Because if they haven't looked, or if they don't know what product's out there, it really is our job as a dealership and as salespeople to kind of point them in the right direction. And I think our staff does a great job at doing that.
Right. So, that brings up, another point. Obviously, when somebody's looking for a new car, the first thing they're focused on is the product, the car. What am I going to buy? Should I buy the SUV this time? Do I need a pickup? Do I need something bigger, something smaller? What kind of fuel economy is important to me? What kind of price range do I need to be looking in? That's obviously where things start. But taking it beyond that, what should somebody look for in a dealership, in your opinion? Because, from my perspective, that's the one thing that almost always gets overlooked is, is the customer aware of who they're doing business with? Do they know who they're doing business with? And,
Right.
what, just in general, what do you think some of the important things that people should look for in their dealer?
I think first impressions are huge.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody comes to our dealership, I think one of the things that I hear often, even from customers and first-time people that have been to our dealership, is, wow, I didn't realize that you guys had this much to offer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our salespeople, we'll take them and we'll look at cars, we'll do those things, but we'll also show them our service department, our body shop, our gal that does our deliveries for us now, which is very unique.
Right.
As you know, you and I have talked about several times, to
Sure.
really have somebody truly care that the customer knows how to work their car.
Right. To explain that, what Jerry's talking about is we have a dedicated delivery coordinator, so that when you buy a new vehicle, we have a dedicated person that explains all the technology, all the features, and everything with the vehicle, so you really understand how to use it. Everybody knows cars are a lot more complicated today. There's a lot more technology involved. There's more systems involved. There's just more things to know. And so we have a couple people dedicated to perform that function, so that when there is a question about what's happening with their car in terms of how it functions, they can come back and see that person anytime. And it's been very helpful to us. And you're right, that is unique. Something we started fairly recently, and it's gone over really well. So, the other piece you mentioned is service. And from my perspective as a dealer, that's the one thing that is almost universally overlooked, is how is the service experience going to be with the car? Because when somebody buys a new car, the sales process in the big picture of things is fairly short.
Correct.
But the service experience lasts for years. And, I know if I were a consumer out there just looking to buy a car, I mean, if I got out of this business tomorrow, I know that's where I would start, is figuring out what kind of service experience can I anticipate here. And I'd want to check that out first, if it were me. But obviously I've done this for over 30 years, so I have that perspective.
Sure. But as an employee here, and being here as long as I have, again, that's another thing that's so unique even about our dealership in that aspect. You can go throughout our dealership, and even myself, it's nice to, when my family brings in a vehicle, when I bring in my vehicle, because I have to get my vehicle serviced just like the next guy does, or next gal does.
Yeah, everybody does.
I come back there, and here's what I know is we have a lot of familiar faces back there also that have been here for many, many years, and you would know that more than me. But I know of at least two back there that have been here for over 14 years.
Yeah.
And
I think there's 3 that have been here over 20. So, yeah, it's at least on the service side. So, yeah, we do have a lot of longevity back there as well. Let's get back to the car shopping thing. So, there's so much information available today. If somebody came up and asked you, "Hey, Jerry, I'm thinking about buying a car. How should I start? How should I start looking? What should I do? Where should I go?"
I think the best thing is we have customers like that all the time that come in and really don't know even what they're looking for. They know they want to buy something new,
right?
But they don't know even where to start. And again, I think part of having a staff that has been here for a long time, they do a really good job of asking questions.
Sure.
And one of the things, where to start, I mean, we've talked about this before, is the salesperson having the knowledge to be able to steer customers in the right direction.
Sure. What about shopping online? What would you recommend in terms of, hey, I'm really not ready to come to the dealership yet. I'm just kind of now starting to think about it. What are some good online resources for me to look at? What websites would you recommend that I go to?
The best websites that you can go to actually is the dealer's website. because on that website you're going to be able to see firsthand what we even have or what a dealership has.
Sure.
And one thing about the business now is that I want to get across is, from our perspective, we're not afraid when customers look at other dealers' product
Sure.
or their pricing, because
it's all out there.
It's all out there
Everything's
anyway.
out there.
And we prepare ourselves, and we're competitive enough here that we will take care of any of your needs, and we will be able to get any car that you want.
Sure, you have to compete. Just no question about it. You have to compete. What about the manufacturers' websites? I find, Toyota.com, Chevy.com, a lot of information there, wouldn't you say?
I would 100% say that. One thing about going to those different websites, you can go on there and you can build your car.
Right.
You can pick the color, the
look
equipment.
At colors, all kinds of things, options.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that is another great tool for customers, especially those that this might be their first experience buying a new car. And this doesn't even mean that you're 18 years old looking for a new car. We have customer of all ages that this might be their first car.
Sure.
And that's a great place, you just said, to start.
One thing I've noticed to look out for sometimes on the manufacturer's websites is that you can go configure a car that actually isn't buildable.
Correct.
They might offer those things online, but actually when you go to get the car, they won't build that actual combination of items. Explain how that works a little bit.
And actually, sometimes, and not putting our manufacturers down, because we have some of the greatest.
Oh, we put them down all the time. Don't kid yourself.
Yeah, okay, good point. That's a good point. We have, especially with Toyota, let's use that as an example.
Yeah.
They let you go on there and they let you build this vehicle, and they let you put this equipment and that equipment on, and that customer will come into us, and it's actually put us in bad positions before, because in different regions they build different cars,
right? As
you're very aware of,
right?
But your most educated customer doesn't know that.
So that's just one of those situations where the customer kind of needs to rely on the dealer for that information in terms of, can I get this or not?
100%.
Yeah. So that's kind of where you take it to the next level, from the manufacturer's information to the dealer's information, and say, okay, now that we kind of have it figured out what you want, let's figure out, if that's a feasible configuration or not.
Yeah.
Is it buildable?
Yeah. Can we even get this vehicle? And
right.
Here's one nice thing, and we don't just leave this to our salesmen to have to explain to the customer. There's been many times in my 15 plus, almost 16 years here, that I'll bring a customer right into my office and I'll show them right on the preference sheet. Let's take a Tacoma, for example.
Yeah.
I'll take them right to the Tacomas and I'll show them, okay, in our region, here's how this vehicle is configured.
Right.
And actually, our customers, they really appreciate that, because just like you, in all my years, you've always had an open door policy. Our managers will do the same thing with a customer.
Yeah.
And again, going back to what's unique about our dealership, that's one of the things. We're not sitting up in some high tower where you can't get to and you can't see, and we're closing the door on you and we don't want you to hear.
Right.
You're more than welcome to come in and ask questions.
Yeah, the access to information's here, and that's really helpful. It's really helpful.
100% agree with that. And then, so a lot of times we're able to help customers in that regard. Okay, here's what you really can get from the manufacturer, and here's what they're building. Let's see what suits your needs the closest.
Right. What about dealer trades? We dealer trade a lot. I know it because I signed the checks.
Yes. And I answer the phone dealer trade manager.
And dealer trades around here are almost a daily occurrence. So why don't you talk a little bit about that process, how that works, why we do it, and so on, what it means for a customer.
So let's just say a customer comes in here and they've done their research. And they come in here and they don't see what we have on the lot. They don't see something that they're wanting on the lot.
Right.
Here's another that I love about our dealership.
So just in terms of equipment or color, even model, what have you. It's just not here.
Absolutely. We may not even have the vehicle. We've gone out before when a customer's come in and there's a $80,000 Land Cruiser, for example, and we don't have one. We will do a locate, and we can go out as far as we want to. I mean, there's been times that I've gone clear into a Cincinnati region to get a vehicle, and I know we don't have a lot of time to get into it, but even doing an A trade, which means that the vehicle's been allocated,
but it hasn't been shipped yet.
Correct, or built yet. And we can go clear into other regions.
Sure.
Another unique aspect of our dealerships that we did many years ago that you okayed is a truck and trailer.
Sure.
Because there are some people that, oh man, I don't want somebody driving my vehicle 300 miles.
Well, and if it's the winter time, you don't want to subject it to rock chips and all that sort of thing that can happen. So, obviously, transporting something by trailer, is a lot more sanitary, so to speak.
Absolutely.
In terms of bringing a fresh car in.
Which we have.
So, yeah, of course. I guess in summary, the reality is that we have access to thousands of vehicles as a result of the dealer trade process. And that's one of those things that happens kind of behind the scenes that not everybody sees.
Correct.
But it's a very valuable tool for us because you could have 10,000 vehicles in stock and still not have all the combinations covered.
Absolutely.
So that's a very important piece for people to understand, that just because they want the blue one and it's not here doesn't mean that they have to go find it in Timbuktu.
Correct.
We have the immediate technology to be able to locate it, get it, bring it here for them. So that's the convenience factor that, is important for people to understand, that just kind of happens at your computer and at your telephone.
Right.
And something you spend a fair amount of time doing.
Right. And like you were talking about that shopper that, hey, where do I start? What if you don't have the vehicle? You make a great point. A customer doesn't have to go to Timbuktu. We'll do it for them.
Right. And
we've done it plenty of times. So if a customer does not see a vehicle that they want on the ground, I'm going to say 9 times out of 10, I can find it and we can get it here for them. And that one time that we can't, it may be just because that particular vehicle isn't out there, but it doesn't mean that we can't preference that vehicle and get that vehicle for them at some point. Right.
Let's talk about timing, because a question that I get fairly often is the good old question, when's the best time to buy? When should I shop for the new car? When am I going to get the best deal? What's that all about? What's your take on that?
I think that can get so confusing and I think that's another thing that comes from the manufacturer, because you see so many different advertising ploys to get a customer in now.
Sure.
If you'll notice, that's all year long.
Typically,
and with incentives the way they are, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I have customers ask me the question all the time. Okay, it must be the best time to buy now because that you still have some 18s and the 19s are here also. So it must be the best time to buy. You're both right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because the market is so fluid now, and manufacturers can shape incentives to influence pricing, and what's that based on? Well, it's based on supply. When a particular model gets long in supply, you typically see the incentive increase, and when they get in tight supply, the incentive decreases. So kind of my generic answer, I always tell people, when's the best time to buy? When there's the most in stock.
Right.
When there's a bunch of them available, whether that be at the beginning of a month, the end of the month, the beginning of a year, the end of the year, the middle of the year, whatever it is you're looking for, when there's a bunch of them available, that's typically the best time to buy, because that's typically when the pricing's the best.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the end of the year, you know, and not saying this just because it's the end of the year, but we're talking about this in December. We have a lot of product
But
right now.
somebody might be watching this in the springtime.
They could be.
Right.
Very well could be. But as far as those lines, our inventories here, we've done such a good job with our market share that we really, for the most part, I mean, you and I, because we used to not be able to say this with Toyota. There were times that we were very short.
Right.
And the good news is we don't have that problem as much anymore.
Yeah, availability's improved a lot.
It's improved so much that we can make good deals throughout the year. And a customer, now listen, sometimes the incentives change, but the dealer doesn't have any control over that.
Right.
The manufacturer does.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when it comes to the availability of cars and the incentives that go on throughout the cars, or throughout the year, we can make the same kind of deal that we could in January that we could even in December. So it's just a matter, if a customer is looking at a car in a specific time, I'm going to say your best time to buy a car is now, because do we have the product that you like? Right. Number one most important thing, I think, do we have the product that you want? Yes, we do. Okay, that's the car I've been looking for. We have here's our price on it, and that's another thing, you know, we can talk about it I mean, our process is so easy here that it makes it pretty easy to buy a car.
Right. You know, that brings up, you know, another point, and I get this question from time to time as well. Who is typically the happiest customer? What's the profile of a satisfied, happy customer? Who do you see?
Just to be honest, the customer that comes in that doesn't spend 3 hours at the dealership, isn't going back and forth on the price.
Everybody gets grumpy after 3 hours.
Absolutely, right? Including us.
Sure.
But the happiest customers that I see are the ones that they come in, our salespeople do a good job of putting them on the right car, or they know what car they're looking for.
Sure.
We put them in the car, we'll demo the car, we'll show them the features on the car. We come in, we're very fair, because again, it's very easy to go online and look and see what my trade is worth or what it could be worth. So we make that process easy also. So the happiest customers that we see are the ones, we have the car, we make the price right, we get them where they want to be on their trade, whether they're paying cash or making payments, and they're in and out of here within an hour. And sometimes, you know, customers get so excited now, back to our gal that does our deliveries, we will take 5 minutes or as long as the customer wants to go over that car with them.
Sometimes it's an hour.
And
it just depends.
The one thing about Chelsea, who is our gal that does our deliveries for us, she seems to make a lot of people smile when they leave, because of the job she does.
Yeah, she loves her job, and she's really good at it. So that makes a big difference. You know, let's talk about online purchasing. You know, you mentioned some people, when they come in, they already know what they're looking at because they've been online, they've been on our website, they picked a car out, you know, they know what they have there. Perhaps we've priced it with them online. Maybe we haven't. Maybe we have to look at their trade for an appraisal yet or whatever. But, you know, what percentage of people at this point are shopping online at somewhere in their purchasing process?
I'm going to say 50% at least. Customers that come in generally have some type of idea of what they want, which means they've been online. We have customers that sometimes can come in here and, you know, every now and again, to be honest, tell me something about a car that I didn't know. So, you know, they've been online, but I would say at least 50%. And the good thing about it is we have designated internet managers for Toyota and for our GM side. Right. And they're very good. Yep. And so we're very competitive in that market. And there's a lot of times that the deal is already worked out by the time they get in here.
Right, which kind of brings up, my next question is, how many people do you see, moving forward that would really just like to be able to complete the entire transaction online?
I think most.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think everything that we talked about has been good
Mm-hmm.
in our dealership experience. It really is good,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that's another timing factor. People
Yeah.
are so busy. I think they'd love to be able to do the whole deal and just be
Yeah.
able to come in and say, "Hey, my name is so and so, and I did everything online," and we have their paperwork ready, and they go in and sign.
Sure. There is some risk there.
Absolutely.
Obviously, I've always been an advocate that, before you buy a car, you should drive one first.
100%.
Just because you don't know what it's like until you're behind the wheel on the road. And hopefully everything goes well and it meets your expectations. But there are those moments where it doesn't. Where
Correct.
somebody says, gee, this car just doesn't feel like I thought it would. It's not as big as it looked like online. I feel a little cramped in this car. Or it sits different, or it feels different, or I don't like the seat, or I don't like how the steering wheel sits, or what have you. Obviously, there's a lot of ergonomics involved there. But I've always, been an advocate that, drive it before you buy it. I mean, there's just I've always felt there's a limited amount of what you can do online, and yeah, it really is possible to complete the whole transaction online. But, there's just a certain number of things that you can't do online. You can't go online and get a haircut.
Nope.
There's just some stuff that you really need to do in a live setting. And buying a car, has that element to it. Obviously a lot of it can be done online, to the point where we get to 100%, from beginning to end is done online without any, face-to-face interaction. Right. is challenging. It's difficult.
Even with those customers that we just mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
they'll tell us we have that they're coming in.
Mm-hmm.
We've worked out the price. We may have even worked out some of the trade numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Those customers, when they get here, when we have an appointment, which our internet manager, okay, I'm free at 3. You're okay, perfect. 3:00, we'll have that car pulled up.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an old saying, but it's a true saying. You are not, for the most part, going to go buy a pair of shoes without trying those shoes on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same for buying a car,
Mm-hmm.
and even more so. You're not going to spend $20, $30, $40, $100,000 without
Right.
driving a car.
Right.
And so we'll have that car pulled up for the customer
Right.
and say, okay, before we finish, let's go.
Right, because you can go online and order the pair of shoes.
Absolutely.
Have them delivered to your front door, and they don't fit.
Yep.
What do? You send them back.
Send them back.
It's a little more challenging to do with a car.
That's a lot more challenging.
Yeah. And what would be, your explanation behind that? Somebody comes in and says, this car doesn't fit what I need. I need to bring it back. How do you handle that? What do you do?
That's a tough situation for the customer and for the dealership.
It's tough for everybody.
Absolutely.
And my reply to that is the only way to fix that situation is to not allow it to happen.
100%.
Because you just can't let something regress to that point to where the customer wants to bring it back the next day.
Right.
So, it's so important that we do everything right so that when the next day comes, everything's good.
Yeah, that's why it's important too for the customer. We're not even when the deal is even done and a customer says, "Oh, I've driven them before."
Right.
And then you find out,
I've heard that
once or twice. And you find out that here we are with the 2019 models, and the first thing that I ask our salespeople is, "Oh, okay, they've driven one. What year?" And more often than not, the same vehicle that they drove, let's say it was a Camry, it was 5 years old.
Right.
I've driven one before. You need to drive. I do not care if you have 5 of the exact same cars sitting in a row. The one thing that we do here and that we're pretty adamant about is taking our customers for a drive because of what you just said.
Right.
We don't want our customers coming back saying, I don't like this car.
Well, and if it's a prior generation model, the only thing that it may have in common with the current one is the name.
Right.
It could be a whole new car from the ground up.
Correct.
You know, which like on our Toyota Camry, for example, we deal with that a lot right now.
Absolutely.
Because we're dealing with a new generation car.
Yeah.
And everybody's coming out of a prior generation one, and it's like, ooh, this really is new. Yeah.
2019 RAV4, complete new change.
Another example.
You can't, I mean, these cars are so different from year to year.
Corolla was another one.
Corolla's another one. I mean, it really is important. And it's important to us. I mean, because the one thing that I'd like to get across as being here for a long time and being a customer advocate, for the customer, you need to drive the car.
Sure.
And that is very important. Even if you drove your buddies who bought one 8 months ago.
It comes back to one of the things I've said for a long time, and I've said this to a lot of people, and that is your satisfaction's important to us. And you know, we want to be sure that they are satisfied up front, because you know, we want to make sure that that goes right and that they have a good experience. Not just buying it, but through the entire life cycle of the vehicle.
Absolutely.
You know, and obviously that's where service comes into play. And there's a lot of things that we'll go into in future broadcasts. But, you know, one of the things that we kind of tiptoed on, really didn't go down the road, and that's financing.
Yeah.
We'll do a whole session on financing and what's involved there.
Absolutely.
With customers, because that's an integral part of the purchase. You know, the financing has to work right. And, you know, there's a lot of questions about leasing. When's leasing the best deal?
Sure.
You know, when should I finance it? Is paying cash a good thing to do if you have the capacity to do that? We'll do another session on that.
Yeah.
We'll do some more on service. There's a lot we have to talk about in service. So, Jerry, thanks for the time this afternoon. It's been fun talking about it. Jerry Stone, our Toyota sales manager here at Clint Newell Auto Group. I'm Clint Newell. I hope you've enjoyed this session of Talking Shop. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast today. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for future broadcasts, and also like and share on Facebook.